Good morning, guys. Another beautiful day upon us here. It's about 6:30 this morning. And today I'm going to try to finish up the rest of the Eberspacher install. And so this is the heater hose that I'm going to be using. See, it's got 3 layers there. I have some of the other stuff too, but doing some research, I found out that this hose versus this one, there's really not a whole lot of difference. I know that's the silicone version, but there is silicone in this one as well. And this is a thermoid hose. A 50-foot roll of it was $70 compared to the other stuff, which is really spendy. So I'm going to use this stuff to run the coolant, and just some of the other parts that I'm going to be installing today. I did a little bit yesterday that I didn't get on video, and I wanted to show you guys that. So this is going to be the heater. Let me turn the light on here. This is going to be the heater we're going to use. It's a Meridyne. You can see there it's 14,000 BTUs and just a small amount of amperage with a fan on full blast, which it won't ever happen. It'll be on like a lower speed. What I ideally want to do is mount it off of this post here. I think that's where it's going to end up going. Take a couple pieces of strut and mount it to the back of this, and then that will be mounted to this post here. I did get the wires pulled in from the Eberspacher. As you can see, here's the control wires. Remember, yellow is going to be for your signal. So basically, if you put 12 volts on this, it's going to send a demand to the Eberspacher to produce heat. And then I moved one of the pins around to the blue one, and the blue one coming from the Eberspacher is going to control the fan on the Meridyne. So it will turn on at the appropriate time when the ECU does all the thinking for this setup. So this is basically the vehicle fan pin, if you guys are following along with me or you're trying to do this install yourself. So here's your signal wire, here's your vehicle fan pin, and of course you got your ground and your power coming in here. And these are just other plugs that are, I'm not going to use them. One's for a dynamo. I don't know what the other ones are for. I know this brown one is ground. Brown is always ground on this for some reason. Alright, and then let me show you what I got done underneath. Okay, you guys remember this part where I got the water tank installed and I got all the fittings in? That's all good to go. Turn around over here. I'll try to get the sun out of the camera. So I mounted it here on a piece of strut off at the back of the fuel tank hangers. Do that for a couple of reasons. This seems to be a good location. The wiring harness actually reached. I know the sun's in the way, it's hard to see. Wiring harness reached. I got the coolant pump mounted. I got the wiring harnesses up and over. I have to run the coolant lines out of it. I got the dosing pump mounted, and it's at it's suggested to be between 15 and 30 degrees, and that's pretty much where I got it. Getting into the fuel tanks on these LMTVs for the dip tube was very simple as well. Here, I'm going to show you that in a minute. But my idea is to pull coolant off the engine block back here to the pump, and then this is going to feed into the hot water heat exchanger, and that's going to come out. And then I was going to do a anti-freeze line on the tank, but I believe this little heat exchanger here might provide just enough warmth so that the tank doesn't heat up. Plus it's up inside the frame, and you know, the transmission gets warm and everything else. So we'll see how that goes. I can always add more hose if I need to. And well, I'm going to come out of there and then head up to, I'm going to follow the same route as all the water lines so those don't freeze. And I'm going to head up into the shelter to the Meridyne unit, and then the Meridyne unit is going to go directly back to the engine on the return side of the engine block, and I'll show you guys where that ends up at. Alright guys, they used to make a Arctic heater kit. Webasto used to make it for these trucks, and I went through the PDF to find out where they were drawing coolant from to heat the engine blocks, and it's actually pretty simple. I was surprised. That plug right there has to come out. I have no idea what the thread pitch is. I'm gonna guess it's 3/4 MPT, so I'm gonna have to run to the store and get a fitting if that's the case. And then they return it to this line. They just tee into it with a brass fitting, and so that's gonna be the same route that I take as well. Anything else here? First thing I got to do is drain the coolant, and I've been hitting that up with PB Blaster all week, so I'm hoping it's friendly with me. But as most things on these trucks, it probably won't be. So let's get some of the coolant out of it and it down to a level enough where I can pull that without it leaking all over the driveway. Forgot to show you guys the dip tube. It's really simple. It's a 1/4 inch stainless line. I hand bent it. There's a 1/2 inch MPT fitting in these tanks. It does nothing, it's just a blank. Pull that out. You put this fitting in here. It's a compression fitting that I went all the way through with this dip tube. The dip tube goes down to about 1 inch away from the bottom of the tank. That goes down to the little dosing pump. You have to prime it with like a Mighty Vac pump and then connect it to the dosing pump. Alright guys, I got coolant out. That Allen plug is 14 millimeter. Just in case you don't have one of those, that's not a very common size, but 14 millimeter Allen head. Coolant is, I got what, about 5-6 gallons there, maybe 7. Hopefully that's enough to make it not leak. Okay, that plug cracked free pretty easy. I was surprised. But yeah, it is a 3/4 MPT. I've got a reducer here, 3/4 to, actually it's just 3/4 threads, and this is a MPT fitting that I think is going to go in there. I'll have to put some RTV on it. Yeah, I'm going to give this a go, and then all I got to do is find a 45-degree adapter and 5/8 barb fitting. So let's give this a shot. Alright guys, so I got the return line ran. Let me get up on the truck here so you can see it better. See the supply line down there? I just ran a 90 and it runs along the C channel and then to the pump here. I'll show you in a minute. But here's the T end of the, that's the return T end of that. I tie wrapped it up so it doesn't rub on anything, and it still has movement, so that should be good. Go under the truck here. And so I'm feeding to the hot water exchanger, and then that goes back up to the bed. I'll show you that here in a minute. This might be hard to see. That's the supply coming in to the coolant pump. Man, I'm just so excited about this. It's turning out way better than what I thought. And then in the bed, we got our return and our supply sitting here ready to go into the structure. So I got to punch yet another hole into the shelter to get both of these hoses in there to the heater. So that's the next step. I don't know if you guys could see that, but I got the hole punched in there and I put an aluminum tube through there and Sikaflexed it in. I'll show you on the inside here. While we're waiting for that to dry, I'm going to try and work on mounting the Meridyne heater. So worry about that, and I'll probably work on some of the wiring here too while this is waiting to dry, but there it is. I'm going to use Kaizen foam to insulate that, so should be good to go. Shouldn't cause any problems to the structure. So yeah, work on getting this mounted and the wiring next. Alright guys, I just finished with the wiring. I had to add 2 circuits to the panel. One was for the heater fan and one's for the S-bar. The S-bar power will be on a switch, but the signal will be provided via the thermostat when it sends out a heater call signal. That'll go to the S-bar. Then the S-bar should, in theory, send a signal to this relay to turn the fan on the furnace. And that's just the power for the S-bar on a relay. Got the heater mounted. I used some spare strut I had around and a couple of 1.5 inch pipe straps to get that attached there. The Sikaflex is still drying, but I'm going to try to get those hoses through here so that I can get them connected to the heater, and that part will be done. And then it's just time to fill it with coolant, turn everything on, and keep your fingers crossed. Make sure everything works as it did when we tested it yesterday. Okay guys, I got everything hooked up. I turned the thermostat on a hold temperature that it forced the heater to turn on. Here it goes. This is the first run. Coolant pump's running. Dosing pump is running. Heater is starting up. Yeah, buddy. Here we go. I just got to keep an eye on the coolant level over there at the expansion tank because I'm sure there's air in the system. So. Go. Look in the sight glass here and see. It's probably hard for you guys to see, but as long as there's coolant in the top vial there, we're good to go. Trying to get that pump to pump water and coolant through everything so I can check for leaks. And so I'm not sure, since I've never had the fan hooked up to the Eberspacher, I'm not sure when it's gonna turn on or whatever, and I didn't even test this to see if this switch works here. So heat on. So I'll come back to video here when everything gets up and running better. Or once all the coolant and everything goes through, I'll come back. Alright guys, I did get it to work. I had some problems with it when I initially started it and figured out what it was. So this particular unit, if your battery voltage drops below 12 volts, it'll just go into shutdown. So without the truck running, and it's been sitting here for a couple weeks now, the batteries got down pretty low, messing around with stuff and that type of thing. And the other thing I wanted to mention too is I didn't actually need to use this blue wire to turn the heater fan on. There is red and black wire that's already pigtailed out, and it already has a spade connector on it that turns the fan on for this. So as it sits right now, the Eberspacher is on, and it's putting out a tremendous amount of heat out of this little Meridyne heater. Like if I had the door closed, it'd probably be 100 degrees in here. That's a good thing. It's better to oversize something than undersize something. This fan speed is adjustable on here all the way till it shuts off, and then you can turn it down really low too, all the way to shut off, to where it's just basically just turning just a little bit, which would probably be good for like sleep. If you're sleeping, you just want the heat on just a little bit. But yeah, the whole voltage thing was throwing me off. I had to go through and check all my connections. I'm thinking the damn thing is turning off on its own. It's gonna have a failure 10 times in a row, and then I'm really in trouble. I think I am gonna order the diagnostic unit just to have it with, in case something does happen and we need to diagnose it out in the field. But other than that, I mean, it's working great. It's running right now. The supply line is extremely hot, and then the return line is just mildly hot. If you adjust the fan speed, it changes the return line dramatically. So, and yeah, it does have hot water, and it's like it's weird when you first turn on, it's cold, and then it's really hot. And then what happens, I think the Eberspacher figures out that the coolant coming through is not hot enough, so it goes into high mode again, and yeah, that's above boiling coming out of there. So yeah, everything does work. I'm extremely happy with this setup. I've got everything wired in there and neat, tidy, and tucked away. So I think that's a done deal. We can go out here and see if the heater itself will turn off once it senses that, once it receives a signal from the thermostat, it will shut off. Probably too noisy under here, but yeah, it's running. I think if I get the little diagnostic controller, I read on some of the forums that you can change the shutdown voltage. So instead of it being at below 12 volts, you could set it at like 11 or whatever. I have to upgrade the batteries in this truck anyway, so eventually at some point that's not going to be an issue anymore. But I think that I'm going to call it quits for today. And coming up, I've got an episode coming up. It's probably be a small one, but I got the well, here, I'll show you guys what I got. I'm gonna be doing the install on this. eBay had a 15% off coupon, and I used it on this setup because it was in my shopping cart and I was just hesitant to buy it. But it's the brand new diesel cam, from Garmin, 785 LMTS, and a BC35 wireless backup camera. You can hook 4 of these up to this unit, so it covers both your navigation, your truck breakdowns, emergency services, as well as all the cameras on your rig. Other than that, I think that's going to be it for today, guys. I will catch you next time. Bye bye.